pa 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 ella, pa 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 ella,
So glad you could join us for another edition of Locally New England, a show that is committed to bringing you local lifestyle insights, marquee events, and business profiles highlighting the culture that makes Rhode Island and New England such a special place to live. I'm Meredith Gorman.
And I'm Joe Guarnieri. Halloween is right around the corner, so to celebrate, we'll feature some Halloween events for you to check out and get into the holiday spirit.
But first up, we'll sit down with Sinapi Law to discuss employment law, a very important legal topic right now. All of that and more when we come back.
Locally New England is brought to you by Charahoe Furniture, beautifully crafted American-made home furnishings. First Hyundai, North Attleboro. Save every day at First Hyundai. And Some Pump Geeks. We service all brands.
Joining us now is Sinapi Law Associates. Thanks for joining us. And of course, today we're going to discuss the very important subject of employment law. Now, as we talked about right before you guys came on the show, most employees in this country are at will. Now, what exactly does that mean?
At-will employment means that unless you are protected by a collective bargaining agreement, because you're in a union, or if you have a written contract of employment for a specified period of time with a for-cause termination provision, you are probably an employee at will. That means that you can be treated adversely by your employer, including demotions, reductions in pay, what have you, or you can be terminated at any time for any reason or no reason whatsoever, unless it's motivated in whole or in part, this is where we come in, by race, color, sex, creed, age, disability, national origin, sexual orientation, or whistleblowing, or retaliation for exercising one of those protected rights.
Right. And so what that means also is that the employer can even terminate you for an incorrect reason, maybe a reason that's unfair, and it may very well be unfair but not illegal, and that's where you have the line and we have to figure out as an attorney, does the unfairness rise to the level of a violation of the law?
Now, what are the most common employment violations?
By far, it's disability, pregnancy, or caregiver discrimination, by far. Employers, they look at people who are injured as damaged goods. And, well, they're supposed to come back from this injury or what have you, but, you know, I don't know if I can rely on this person. You know, I think, you know, it'd be safer to get rid of them. And you see that all too often.
And I would add on top of that, that for disability discrimination, what's really big and happens a lot is mental health issues, right? Where a lot of employers, they don't treat mental health as a disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act. They think people are making it up, you're whining, you're complaining. Whereas if a person has a physical disability, they buy into it more, right? And so there's a lot of mental health disability discrimination going on.
Sure, you mentioned, you know, you make sure the employee's protected. What's the typical process like when people bring your firm in after they've been terminated from a job and they think it was unfair?
Well, our process is actually relatively painless. You know, we do a lot of it remotely. They provide a summary or chronology of what occurred. We discuss it with them. We may discuss it together with this, you know, with my associate attorneys, Dan and I, and our colleagues, and then we make a determination if we think we can help them. We can't help everybody.
Right.
Not all of them, because we have to try to pigeonhole it into one of those protections. As Dan said, just being unfair and to somebody and not having gratitude to your employee or respect for your employee, that's not enough. We got to pigeonhole it. So we do that, and once we do that, we enter into a fee arrangement for them. We'll contact the employer by a letter of representation and other means, and we'll go from there to try to negotiate a resolution or reinstatement or what have you, whatever the employee seeks.
Right, and if that doesn't work, if the employer does not want to resolve the situation, then it goes to the level of a lawsuit, usually in federal court. And so we try to resolve it amicably if possible, but if not, then it results in a lawsuit. And the only thing is that, oftentimes a lot of people call us, and again, it's unfairness that's happened, or it's a personal conflict that's happening, and that doesn't rise to the level, but people appreciate that we can at least give them guidance and explain to them what the law is.
Absolutely. Now, for people watching at home who are wondering, hey, maybe I was wrongly terminated from a past job, I have two quick questions. First, how far back retroactively can you go to go up against a former employer? And two, if someone watching this at home is interested in reaching out to you guys, what's the best way?
That's a great question. So the best way to reach out to us, it's calling 739-9690. That's 401-739-9690. They could also visit us online at www.sinapilaw.com and fill out a questionnaire, and we'll get back to them promptly. But the most important thing that people who are considering a potential lawsuit against an employer is to make sure that they've documented everything. In terms of the statute of limitations. Yeah.
So the statute of limitations, typically it's 300 days for employment law for all your federal rights, except Leave Act claims like FMLA, which are 3 years, 2 years in certain cases. Under Rhode Island law, we have the Rhode Island Civil Rights Act, which incorporates many of these protections: race, color, sex, creed, age, disability, incorporates many of those. So we're able to stretch that out to 3 years in most cases as well.
All right, well, unfortunately, losing your job can be a tough part of life. Thankfully, people have you guys on their side. Thanks for joining us.
That's our pleasure. Thank you.
When we get back, we take a trip down to DAI Restore, coming up next on Locally New England.